Hey there Retro Games fans, this is Andy C from Piece of 8, but welcome to this week's video. This week we're going to be doing another how-to. Last month we did a how-to as well, so it's like buses. We've had a couple come all at once. I don't do them all that often, but last month we looked at homebrew and emulation for the PSP. And I also did my month with the PSP last month, so if you're interested in any of that, please do go check that out. My month with review is just up here somewhere. We're actually looking at an operating system this month, which is Windows 95, which celebrates its 30th anniversary, or did so last month. I can't believe it's been 30 years since Windows 95 came out. And really, the reason why I'm doing that is because it was a turning point in terms of PC gaming. So consoles were the place to be. If you were a serious gamer, you had a console. After Windows 95, that all started to change. And so what we're doing really this month, we're looking at Windows 95, but really we're looking at mid-90s PC gaming and the rise of PC gaming and why it was important. So we're going to be looking at all of that this month. Now, in order to be able to look at that, what we need to do is we need to get Windows 95 set up again, and that is quite a tricky thing to do. So it's not like getting Launchbox or OpenEMU or Raspberry Pi and just loading emulators on there and just firing the ROMs off. That's just nice and easy to do for consoles. For Windows 95, it's a little bit more involved. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to install Windows 95 once again. And I'm sure you think to yourself, I don't want to take my brand new state-of-the-art PC or Mac and replace my operating system with Windows 95. You don't have to do that. What we can do is something called essentially it's a sandbox. We can install a little PC with inside a PC, and we can install Windows 95 on that, and you can install then your games inside Windows 95. I've done it before for Windows 98, so you can go and have a look at the video for that if you're interested in Windows 98. For Windows 95, it's a little bit different, so that's why I felt I wanted to do this again, and depending on whether you're using the Mac or whether you're using a PC, it's also a little bit different. So this video is then therefore split into two parts, so you can skip to the bit that interests you. So if you've got an ARM-based Mac, so that's a Mac Silicon Mac, so a modern Mac really from the last sort of 5 years or so, have a look in the chapters below and skip to the section on Mac. We're going to be using an application called UTM, which will allow us to install Windows 95 in there. And there's quite a few little tweaks and settings. It's a bit more of a fiddle to get it going on the Mac. If you are using a PC with a modern version of Windows on it, obviously again have a look at the chapters. That's going to be the next section. You will be able to use something called VirtualBox, which is a free tool you can go and get, and we'll be installing Windows in there, and I'll be giving you a few little tips and tricks on getting that up and running as well. In both cases, we'll also be looking at how you can get games installed as well, how easy that is to do. So yeah, a lot to get through. The installation process, once you get it going, is generally the same on both platforms. One thing to just note as well, if you have an older Apple Macintosh, so you have a Intel-based Apple, so an i5 iMac, for instance, the big 27-inch one, or an old Apple laptop or something like that, you will also want to get VirtualBox for that. You will be able to run Windows 95 on that. If you want a few tips on that one, have a look at the Windows 98 video that I did some time ago. Most of the steps for that are the same. So probably just watch the PC one from this video, watch the Windows 98 one from my much older video. Apologies for the editing in that one. And that should give you everything you need. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any ideas, any tips or tricks, please do drop a note in the comments, and I'd love to respond to that. So let's get going, and let's start with the PC version of Windows 95 installed on VirtualBox. Okay, so if you're watching this first chapter here, then that suggests that you are looking to install Windows 95 on your more modern Windows-based PC. If you're looking for the Mac ARM variant, so the Mac Silicon variant, that is in the other chapter, and the chapters are down below, so click through to that one if you're looking to install on macOS. There's a few things we're going to need to get before we get started. The first thing we're going to need is something called VirtualBox, so we're going to click and download that in just 1 second. VirtualBox is essentially a piece of software which will, for all intents and purposes, create a software PC, so like a PC within a PC on your Windows system, and we're going to install Windows 95 in that. So it's called virtualization, and VirtualBox is a nice, free and easy to use tool. Lots of support for it. There are lots of other solutions out there as well. but VirtualBox is a good and easy one to get yourself started with. So that's what we're going to be using today. We're also going to need a copy of something called Win95 Fast CPU Fixes. So if you go to this WinWorld site here, go to the library and go to Windows 95 and then patches and scroll down here. You're going to need this Win95 Fast CPU Fixes. You will absolutely need this, and I will explain why as we get to it later on, but you will need to go and get that downloaded ahead of time. We will also need a copy of Windows itself, so if we just go back up a level. I'm not going to put a link to this. It's up to you how you get hold of your Windows 95. You can find them online. I have Windows 95 on CD, but I have no ability to get it off the CD. So I've gone here to this site and I've managed to get myself an ISO. An ISO is basically like a virtual CD, essentially. And when you connect it to VirtualBox, the system that's running inside it will see it like a physical CD. And you'll need something like that. Generally speaking, Windows 95 OSR2 is a good bet, and you'll need the whatever language you've got or want as well. You see here as well, if you want to, if you're crazy, you can also install it on floppy disk, of which there are a number of floppy disks. I think I can't remember how many it is. It's quite a lot, and you'll be there forever changing the floppy disks over, because even though they're virtual, you still have to change them over. So you'll need that. You will also randomly need a copy of MS-DOS 6.22, and the reason for that is essentially when we install Windows, we're going to have a little bit of trouble getting access to all the files on there. So we're going to use MS-DOS 6.22 as our start point. We're going to copy the Windows install files onto our C drive, and then we're going to install it from the hard drive, and we will get a better result as part of doing that, essentially. The next thing we're going to do is we're also going to need some graphics drivers. There's a couple of ways of doing this. There was something that I'd seen online about getting something like, I think it's called it's called Screen Doctor something or other. I actually found this one and I found it quite useful. I will pop the link to this in the description. I did manage to get this working quite well, and it's quite easy. So what you'll need here is this one here. It's called VMDisp9X, a version number, driver 3D Win95.iso, and that should give you everything you need to get yourself up and running with the graphics when it starts up. What you'll find is it runs in a very basic graphics mode, so to be able to get more colors and a better resolution, you're going to need a new driver, and that is what this will provide you here. Okay, so that is all of the stuff you need to get yourself started. Let's go and get VirtualBox downloaded, and then let's get it installed. Okay, so to get VirtualBox installed, we go to the virtualbox.org website, click on download, and you can see here we've got the different versions here. So we've got the Windows hosts version, which is the one we want. Let's just click on that and get that going. There's the macOS Intel hosts, and you can certainly follow the similar instructions, very similar to set up and use, and we should be able to get Windows 95 working on an Intel based Mac. Those are the older Macs, so you'll have like an Intel processor such as an i5, and that will allow you to install something like Windows 95 or 98 or any of the old Windows systems on there. You won't be able to install it on a more modern Mac, so if you've got an Apple Silicon from the last few years, so where your processor starts with an M, so M1, M2, M3, that kind of thing, you won't be able to run Windows 95 through VirtualBox on that, and you are going to need to do something different. That is what I go through in the install on Apple Silicon chapter later on in this video, and we're going to be using something on there called UTM. So go check that out. That is what, if you've got an Apple and you want to set it up on there, you can absolutely do that as well, but it is a little bit different. So go check it out in that chapter. All right. So now we've downloaded VirtualBox, we now need to go ahead and get it installed. So to get it installed, we click on our installer that we downloaded. You can see there from my downloads that I've got a whole bunch downloaded already. And it's a very straightforward installation. Accept the terms and conditions. Next, next, next. And that is it. And that will install, and it takes just a few seconds to get that going. Okay, that's now finished, so let's get that started up. Now we've got VirtualBox up and running, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get our MS-DOS installed ahead of us installing Windows 95. So we're going to need a copy of MS-DOS. You can find them all over the place, but I picked this up off winworldpc.com, and all we need to do to get hold of it is go to Library, MS-DOS, and we're going to want 6.22, And then down here, we are going to want 6.22 plus enhanced tools, 3.5, 1.44 meg. So it's that version there, not the upgrade. That one won't work because you won't already have DOS installed. So that is the one that we need. All right, so once we've got that downloaded, we can unpack that and it'll come down as a zip, so you want to unpack it. And what you might want to do, just for ease, is to take the files that are unpacked, so disk 1, 2 and 3, and just put them in your downloads folder so that you've got quick access to them. And it also stops VirtualBox behaving weirdly where it won't let you drill into folders for some reason. I don't know why, maybe it's just me, it just doesn't like to play ball. Okay, so click on new. I'm going to call this Win95. And you can see straight away it's detected from what I've typed that it's Microsoft Windows and it's Windows 95. And we're not selecting an ISO image at this point. So let's just check the hardware that we've got here. 64 megabytes of base memory is absolutely fine for Windows 95. Most machines at the time would have been running perhaps a little less than that, in fact. You don't want to go too crazy with it. Go up to 256 if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend going too much higher than that. We only need one CPU. And our disk size, the default is 2 gigabytes, which again is more than enough for running Windows 95. So I think from a hardware point of view, we're pretty much all good to go. So let's just go back up here again. So I think we're happy with that. And then let's click finish. So that's our Windows 95 box created. And if we click start, we're going to run straight away into an error. So it's not going to have anything to boot at the moment because we haven't installed anything yet. So this is what this no bootable medium fan, that's absolutely expected. So if we cancel off that, go to devices, go to floppy disks, go to choose a disk file, and then we've got our disk 1, 2 and 3 in there. So we're going to click on disk 1. And then what we're going to do, so what that's done is basically that's the same as putting a physical floppy disk into the drive, and then we're going to restart the machine. So now we're restarting MS-DOS and we can now get on and set it up. So let's go through the motions here. So we're going to configure our unallocated disk space and restart. I'll let that format. I'll come back to you when that is done. Okay, so let's set the country to UK. Obviously you can set it to whatever you like, but if I don't do that, it will be wrong. And everything else looks okay. We're going to install it in CDOS, and that is it. Now, to change our disk, all we do, go up to devices, go to floppy disks, choose a disk file, go to number 2, and that is it. Click enter. And we're going to have to do that one more time. There we go, third time. Floppy disks. Choose a disk file. Disk 3. Enter. Okay, and then finally what we need to do is just remove the disk so it doesn't boot it again. Remove our disk and then press enter. We're now ready to go, so we're going to restart and we'll go straight into MS-DOS 6.2. That is it. There we go. So we're now in MS-DOS 6.22, and that is all we need to do for MS-DOS. So in the next step, we're going to start to install Windows 95. Okay, so first thing we want to do is power down the machine. So let's shut that down. Well, that isn't shutting down, but that's actually okay. Before we do that anyway, let's go to optical disks. Let's just attach our Windows one. So in the same way you did with the floppy disks, devices, optical drives, Win95 OSR 2.iso. That's your Windows install CD. And let's try that again for reset. There we go. So now what's going to happen is it's going to start that Windows 95 CD. Now, as I mentioned before, what happens is when you install from here through the VirtualBox, there are some issues picking up some files and reading some files. And what that means then is you run into a lot of errors. So when I installed this before, I kept bumping into loads and loads of different errors. It caused me all sorts of problems. Basically what I did was went and had a bit of a look around the web, and obviously on that web page that I got the ISO from, it suggested installing DOS first, and we'll show you why that is important right now. So what we're going to do is we're not going to continue. We're going to press F3 and we're going to come out, and you'll notice here that we're in this X drive here. So X Windows 95. That is essentially like a virtual, that's where the Windows 95 installers are. So if we type dir, it shows us everything that's in that folder. There we go. And you can see all the Windows disks in there and the Win setup and everything else like that. So we're going to go to our C drive. And again, if we type dir, we can see all of the information there about that. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a Windows 95 folder. So if we type mkdir, which means make directory, I'm going to call it Win 95. Don't worry about the case, this is DOS. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back onto our X drive. So we type x:, and then we're going to say copy *.*, which means everything, to C:// Win 95. So that's going to put all of the files onto our C drive, and that will give us everything we need to install directly from there without needing the CD. Okay, so all the files are now copied. So what we now need to do is we need to remove the CD drive. So we've got optical discs connected up there, and we're going to just remove that disk from virtual device. There we go. And we're just going to restart the machine. So let's just do a quick reset. That'll take us back into MS-DOS. And then we're going to go to our Windows 95 directory. So that's CD, which means change directory, Win95. And then we're just going to type setup, and away we go. And that is it. Now, straight away we've got this, and it was very quick. We're already starting to look a little bit more Windowsy, and you can see the mouse there is frozen on the screen. If I click in there, the mouse will now start to move around. You might get a warning box pop up telling you about mouse capture, and essentially you can see down the bottom of the screen, if I just press the button that it says, right down the bottom here, it says right control, and that releases the mouse back into your main Windows environment. If you click in this box here, it'll capture it again. So we just press the right control button to release that as and when we need to. So let's click continue, and let's go through the setup. So yes, all right, let's skip through it. C Windows, typical installation, and I'm going to type my code in, and yeah, I'll see you in the next section while I do that. Okay, so let's pop in a name and company name, and we're going to just let it select all of those things there: CD drive, network adapter, and obviously sound and video capture. Alright, so that's now going to do a little bit of analysis, which takes a little while, so I'll join you back when that has finished. Okay, that's probably the longest part of the installation process actually, and this is one of the big things about Windows 95 was this plug and play thing. It could have a look at what hardware you've got and work out what drivers you needed, making it a setup much easier. Yeah, that part is now done. So let's click through. We're going to install the most common components. We don't want a startup disk. You don't need one. And now we're going to copy all of the files. I'll be back with you once this is complete. Okay, now just the last few steps here. It always says this, but it doesn't seem to be a thing, so we click OK, and it's going to restart now. So we should just now come straight into Windows 95. All right, and here we go. This, if you remember earlier, the fixed CPU 95, this is exactly the problem that we've had with Windows. And this is to do with the fact that your modern processor is way too quick for what Windows was designed for. And so we need to patch Windows to get that set up. So if you remember that download that we picked up before, if we just click Control to release the mouse, and we come up to Devices, come to Optical, and we have this fixed 95 CPU.iso. So I'd selected that before, which is why it's in my list, but to get to it, choose a disk file, fixed 95 CPU, and we are now attached. If we go in the optical drive, so you can see that here, and then we're just going to restart the machine and run the patch. You get this delightful red screen. any key to continue. It recommends you read the README, so we're not going to read the README. Press any key, and we are done. And that is it. So what we now need to do is remove the optical disc. It's going to throw a wobbly now. If we press another button, so we're not going to press the restart, we're just going to do the reset from here, otherwise it'll error. Doesn't matter really. And that should resolve the problem. Now, it thought that it had failed last time, so we're going to go to normal mode, and we should be able to now finish our setup. All right, so we've got to set some network pieces up. So we're just going to call it work group. And we're just going to say virtual 95. Let's just call it that one word. Okay. There we go. And this is where we've had problems before with these files. So we'll just say file is older than the one currently on your computer. It's recommended that you keep your existing file. Do you want to keep this file? Yes. There we go. Now, you will have had a load of problems. If you didn't do that MS-DOS setup and the copy before, you would have had a load of problems there, and it would have caused you all sorts of errors later on. So we've avoided that, which is fantastic, and we should get a much better experience now. I had loads and loads of trouble with the previous install that I did. So that MS-DOS step might seem a little unnecessary, but it will give you a much better result. It will install, but every time you start Windows, you'll have to click about 7 times to get through all the error messages, and it will give you some odd behavior as well. Okay, so let's pick Greenwich Mean Time and apply that and close that. Click Next. We don't need a printer. Cancel that, and it's finished set up. So it's going to restart one more time. Okay, we're just going to not set a password there for the moment. Finalizing settings, and that's it. We are now into Windows. So the next step now is that we need to set up our graphics properly. If we go into Properties, not sure what it was doing then. I'm going to think about something. And we go to settings, you'll notice that we only have the option of 16 colors and 640 by 480. And most games are not going to be interested in that at all. So what we need to do, I mentioned before about going to that website. So if we obviously press the Windows button inside Windows 95, we're going to get that up. So if we come out of there, press Control, come back to our browser for a second, and then we go to this website here, JH Robotics. And we're going to download this file here, this Win95 ISO file. That will give us some nice drivers that we can use. Like I said, there are a couple of different options. I found this one worked quite well. So we go back into VirtualBox. We're going to go up to devices here again. We're going to go optical drives, and we are going to click on the ISO that we downloaded from that website. It may come down in a zip, so you might need to just unpack that first. Okay, so that's now sitting on our CD drive. If we click on Advanced Properties on here, and we're going to change the drive, change the driver. Go to Have Disk, Browse. We're going to click on this one here, and we're going to go to G drive. And you see this has now lit up this file here. So we're just going to click OK on that. I'm going to click OK on that. And we're going to pick VBox VGA PCI adapter. Okay, that is now done. So if we close that, we now have the option of, well, at the moment we only get 640 and 800 by 600, but actually when we restart the machine, we'll get a lot more options appearing in there as well. There we go. So let's specify a monitor. And let's pick something a little bit more beefy. So let's go for this 1280 by 1024. And it's going to want to restart. All right, now we're back in Windows. It's going to give us some moan. It's going to moan about a couple of things here. Don't worry about those. Click on Properties. Go to Settings. And hey presto, we've got loads more colors. So let's run True 32-bit color. And let's up the, maybe not to the very, very top one. Let's go for 1280 by 960, otherwise it won't fit on my screen. And we're going to restart one more time. And there we go. So we're now running in full color. And we're pretty much good to go. So if we want to install a game, what we can do, if we release our mouse cursor and go up to devices, I downloaded Age of Empires. So if we wanted to install Age of Empires, we have the same thing again, Age of Empires gold.edition.iso. So we click on that, and that CD will now load. There we go, and we can now install it. I'll come back to you once this is finished setting up. Okay, so there we are, that's Age of Empires set up. We'll need to restart the machine, as you often did with Windows 95 when you installed anything. We'll need to restart to be able to continue. So you might have noticed actually that it's Age of Empires 2, and there is a bit of a story behind that. Between me clicking on Age of Empires and this bit of the video, I ran into a few problems. So I couldn't get Age of Empires started. So the first thing I thought was maybe the ISO is dodgy, maybe there's a problem with that. I kept getting blue screens. So I decided to install Age of Empires 2 to see if that was the problem, and I continued to get the same issues. So as you can see, Age of Empires 2 is now working. So if you find yourself running into problems, I'll tell you how to resolve them. I'll tell you what I did. I did run into a couple of little issues, and I was pretty sure that it was probably down to the way that I got the graphics card set up. So just if you do find you're running into some blue screens, same as I did, then what you can do, a couple of things really, things for you to try. First of all, go into your system properties and just check your device manager. Now, everything is pretty standard in here. There doesn't look like there's any errors, so we should be good. And if you go on your display adapter, you do things like you can click on this and you can just do a properties on it, and it should tell you it's working fine. Yeah, this device is working properly. So it wasn't that. Now, actually, what you'll notice here is, if you're very eagle-eyed, you'll notice I've actually changed this. So I'll tell you what I did there. Ultimately, if you right-click, there's a few things you can do on the graphics side just to be sure that everything's good. First thing you can do, just try dropping your color palette down a little bit. So if you've got it set to the maximum, try it in 16 colors, maybe try a slightly lower resolution as a first step. Didn't work for me, so I went in advanced properties and I went to performance. And the next thing you can do is you can turn your hardware acceleration right down or off altogether. So that's the other way of doing it. That again didn't work for me. So the final step that you can take is just to change the driver, and I think probably the driver that I've got selected for this setup was probably not correct anyway, so I made a slight adjustment to that. So if you're finding you're still getting problems when you start things up, you'll have your VirtualBox SVGA PCI adapter selected in there. What we're going to do is change that to the one that's currently displayed on the screen. To do that, click change, go have disk. Now if you remember, if we press Control to release the mouse, go up to devices, and we go to optical devices here, click on that ISO that we downloaded earlier for the graphics. So WinDisp9X, driver 3D Win95.iso. Click on that, and then when we go in here, we go browse. So click back in there, click browse. Go to drives, scroll to the bottom. I have to grab the scroll bar because the scroll wheel doesn't work. And we're going to click on the same one that we picked earlier. Click OK. Click OK. Now you'll see the same one come up that you've currently got selected. So it'll say VirtualBox SVGA PCI adapter or whatever you happen selected. Go show all devices. This was the one we had selected before. VirtualBox SVGA PCI adapter. You're going to select VirtualBox VGA PCI adapter on there. You're going to install that. So we've already done it, but we'll do it again just so you can see. We'll give that a few seconds. Okay, that is now done. Click close. And what you'll see initially, you won't see what I'm seeing here. What you'll see is 256 colors as an option and 800 by 600. And when you click close on that, it's going to ask you to restart. You're going to need to restart a couple of times. And basically, the second time, when you restart after this, you'll then be able to select a better resolution. It'll ask you to restart again. Once you restart again, the screen should now look like this. And when I clicked on Age of Empires this time, here we go. it's all working fine. So there we go. That is how you get that running, and a little bit of troubleshooting there at the end if you run into problems. Generally speaking, that is all you really need to do. The very, very final thing, and I will just show you this as well, if you want to just be fully, completely in the correct, shut down your machine. So you shut that down. And then there's just a few little additional settings which is just worth checking, so that you're in good shape. So we go back on our VirtualBox on here, right click on our Win95, go to settings, and you can do this at the start before you get moving as well. Yeah, if you want to increase any of your settings here, obviously you can absolutely do that. Most things are fine. Under your display here, make sure VBox VGA is selected. You could try the SVGA setting here and then try the SVGA driver. That's probably what I was doing wrong. Those two things probably didn't match. So if you've got SVGA set up, you might find that SVGA driver works better, and vice versa. But this seems to be okay for me, so I don't need to do anything else there. Click on audio. Now the audio was working, but it should be set as Windows Direct Sound. But that seemed to work without that being set, so you're good to go. You need to make sure that you've got NAT selected in your network there. And then the only other thing that you really ought to do, because it's not supported in Windows 95, is turn off your USB controller. And that is it. So hopefully all of those steps there and that little bit of troubleshooting will get you into Windows 95 and set up on your PC. So next what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at doing the same thing, but on our Mac Silicon Apple. I'll see you there. Okay, so if you're watching this section, that means that you have Mac Silicon and you are interested in getting Windows 95 running on your state-of-the-art Macintosh. Now, if you're not sure what sort of Mac you've got, it's quite easy to find out. If in your macOS operating system, click on the little apple in the left-hand corner, click on About This Mac, and it's going to say Mac Mini. It'll give you the year and it'll say this is an Apple M4 chip. That means you've got a newer Mac, which means that you can't use virtualized software for Windows 95. It doesn't have the same architecture, so you will need something different to run it than VirtualBox. If you have an older Intel-based Mac, an i5, something like that, then you can still use VirtualBox, and you can watch my video on installing Windows 98. You can also watch the previous section on installing Windows 95 on the PC. It's very, very similar installing VirtualBox on a Mac with Windows 95 if you have that Intel-based Mac. So we are going to need something different than VirtualBox, and we're going to use something called UTM, and it is essentially an app that you can get from the store. It's very, very easy to use and very easy to set up. Unlike on the Intel setup on the PC, essentially this is all about getting the setup right from the start. Once you get the setup right from the start, the rest of it is really easy. We don't need to install MS-DOS 6.2 as we did before. We don't need to copy the CD over. We don't need to do any of the graphics drivers. We just need to make sure the setting is right from the beginning, and we should be good to go. But it is a little bit involved. So I will talk through that with you right now. So the first thing we need to do is go and get UTM and go to the App Store and find it. Unfortunately, this isn't free. So the advantage of VirtualBox is that it is free. So you can obviously just go to the Oracle website and download that. You can still use VirtualBox on a Mac Silicon, but you'll only be able to install Windows 11, and that's about your lot. So we can go and get this. It only costs £10. There is also QEMU, which is another system you can use, which is a bit more involved in the setup. I figured let's just go and get an app with a nice front end and not bother with the hassle. It costs £10, so really it wasn't that wasn't that big of a deal to go get it. So I've got it. We then click on Open to get that running, and there is one more thing we just quickly need to do before we dig in, and this is the same for both installs. We need what's called the Windows 95 CPU fix. And this is to do with the fact that in Windows 95, it wouldn't support, you wouldn't be able to install Windows 95 natively on a PC now. All of the architecture has moved on. The technology is a little bit advanced for it. And so when you try and install it in this environment, it falls on its face, as you will see later. So we need to download something called the Fast CPU Fixes. You can find that from WinWorld, winworldpc.com. Basically come into the website, go to Library, go to Windows 95, You'll see there are some install ISOs here as well. So if you can't be bothered with the hassle of dragging your Windows 95 off a CD, you can just go and download the ISOs in here as well. They come with the keys and all those kind of things that you need. You can also go and get yourself a Windows 95 boot floppy should you need it. You probably won't for this. The nice thing about UTM is that pretty much everything is set up and ready to go. We don't have to bother with all the drivers and, like I said, all that DOS setup that you have to do with the VirtualBox setup for Windows 95. So we scroll down sorry, not scroll down. Well, we go to the list here and we can pick patches, and we scroll down here and we're going to download something called Win95 Fast CPU Fixes, and that will download a zip file which we want to unpack ready for us to be able to use later on, and I will show you how you do that when we get to it. If we go back to the operating system versions, the version that I'm using is OS R2, so that is available here as well if you want it. Yeah, that is all we need for this one. So we go back onto UTM. You can see here that we've already got an install done, and that actually isn't an install. What that is a virtual. It's basically a portable file, a UTM file. Somebody's already created an image and they've put it on the web, and it means that you can just download it, double click it, and it will just work, and it'll have everything installed. It will all be ready to go. There won't be anything you need to do. It's all self-contained. That's one way to do it, but obviously somebody has set that up themselves and it's set up how they want it, and I'm not sure of the legalities of it. It has Windows, it's got things like Office on it and stuff like that as well, should you want it. I'll leave that in your own hands, but it is very, very easy to set up a new virtual machine on here, so that's what we're going to go and do. So the first thing we need to do is create a new virtual machine. So if we click on that, and you remember earlier there's virtualization and there's emulation, and you can see here virtualization is faster because it's using the native hardware essentially in the platform, but because Windows 95 can't make use of that hardware, we need to emulate, which is going to be a bit slower. But if you're running a Mac M4 or any of the M series Macs, they are more than capable of running an emulated version of Windows 95, which is, well, 30 years old, isn't it? So it's pretty ancient. So it's more than capable of running under emulation, absolutely fine. And I haven't had too many problems trying this. So let's click on emulate. We're not actually going to pick Windows, we're going to pick Other, and we're going to select under Other, we're going to click None under Boot Device, and we're going to click Legacy Hardware, then we're going to click Continue. Under Architecture, we're going to scroll up and we're going to pick i386x86, and we're going to pick this one down here, Standard PC i440FX plus PIIX 1996, alias of PC i440FX91 brackets PC. Rolls off the tongue, I'm sure you'd agree, but that is the one we need to pick. We do not need 4 GB of memory. Windows wouldn't even know what to do with it. So let's just drop that right down to 64 megabytes. Most PCs back in the day had 32, 64, even sometimes even just 16 megabytes of RAM. So that is not going to trouble our system RAM at all. 64 megabytes is nothing in this day and age. And we're just going to pick one CPU core because that is all we really need. We're going to click Continue. And again, we do not need a 64 GB hard drive. We only really need 2. So let's select 2. We're going to select our Downloads folder as the folder for share, although I doubt we will really need it. Click Continue. And then up the top here, we're going to give it a name. So let's call it Windows 95. And we're going to tell it to open the VM settings. So we've just got a few more things we need to adjust just to make sure that it all works okay. So let's click Save. Okay, now under System, that's the first thing we need to do. We need to go to CPU, and we need to scroll all the way to the bottom, and we need to pick Pentium. And I think that's all we need to do in that section. Let me just check. Yep. And under Input, we're going to go to USB, and we're going to turn it off as it is not supported in Windows 95. We're going to go to Display next, and we're going to scroll to the very, very top, and we're going to pick this Cirrus 54XX Cirrus VGA adapter, emulated display card. That is the best for compatibility. Nothing under Network. Under Sound, we are going to pick a Creative Sound Blaster, which was the gold standard back in the 90s and is supported by pretty much everything. And then at the bottom here, you'll see we've got IDE drive. So that's our hard drive that we've just created. And we're just going to create one additional drive, which is, we're going to call it it's going to be a removable CD drive. Interfaces IDE. And we're just going to, just to get us started, we're just going to browse straight to the image that we want. Win95 OSR2.iso. I'm going to click open. So that now makes that, that drive the CD drive, and you can see it's read-only, and it's got our ISO attached to it. An ISO basically is just a virtual CD. So this virtual machine will see that ISO as a physical hard drive, and it will treat it as a physical hard drive in every way. It knows no different. But to you and I, it's a software download essentially, and you can create these. There are ways of creating these, and I will just quickly talk at the end about how you can create ISO images with Macs that are compatible with Windows, because that can also be a bit of a problem at times. Okay, let's click save. And that is it. We're pretty much ready to go. So if we click on the big play button in the middle now, everything should start firing up. We don't need a bootable disk, as I mentioned before, although you can go and get your bootable disk from here if you want to. And all you need to do if you get a bootable disk is, when we added that CD drive, you can also add a floppy drive, and you can just attach the downloaded image to that, and it will boot off the floppy. But you shouldn't need it. UTM has pretty much everything you need to get you going. We'll have a lot less hassle with network drivers and needing to copy all the files onto the C drive and needing the graphics adapters and all those kind of things. We should be pretty good. So I'll just pause. Oh no, I don't need to pause. We're already there. So we're just going to hit enter to set Windows up. We're going to configure the hard drive. And we need to enable large disk support. So Windows 95 didn't naturally support anything over 512 megabytes. And as we have 2 gigabytes, Windows probably thinks that's an enormous amount of space, and why would you ever need that? But we're going to enable large disk support, which will allow us to address all of that 2 gigabytes that we've given it. So it now needs to reboot. So we don't need to worry about there being a disk in drive A. So you can just ignore that prompt and hit enter. Okay, so there we are. It takes a little while to get started again. So obviously I edited that, so make that a little bit quicker, but it does take a little while to get started again. Don't be alarmed. That will be absolutely fine. It will go through and format the drive, and then it will want to restart again, I think. Let's just have a look. But first we're going to do a quick check. So this does a little scan disk to make sure the hard drive looks good. Checks there's no errors, which there really shouldn't be. Make sure we've got plenty of free space. Actually, no, we didn't need to restart, so that's good. Okay, first thing we need to do then, you'll notice that my mouse doesn't actually go into that window if I move it around here. So there's 2 ways of getting the mouse to go in. I can click on this little icon here, and that will capture my mouse inside this box here. Or you can actually just click on the Option and Command button on your Mac. As long as you've got this window selected, you press Option and Command, and it will move the mouse in. And if you want to release the mouse back out into your operating system, you can see it's now trapped inside there. We press Option and Command again, and the mouse is now freely available to move around the rest of your computer. So let's press that back in there. Go to continue. So there we go. Through the license agreement now. It's going to copy some files. It's going to ask us for our key. So I will skip this section while I pop my key in. Okay, so the key is in. I'm going to put my name in. Don't need to put a company in. I'll just put my initials in there. And I'll realise I've not got my mouse captured there. So press those buttons again. So just going to click Network Adapter and Sound, MIDI or Video Capture Card. Click Next. This step takes a few minutes, so I'll be back with you once this has completed. Okay, that's probably the longest part of the installation, to be honest with you. So we just let that finish. Don't be alarmed if it takes a while. If it does stop, power down, go back into safe mode as it instructs you on the screen there, but you shouldn't really have any problems with that at all. Okay, so under Windows Components, we're going to install the most common, and we don't want a startup disk. So we click Next, and Next again, and it's going to copy the files. And this bit is actually quicker than the analysis part. This takes no time at all. But I'll join you again once this is completed. Okay, so that actually did take a little bit longer than I expected it to be honest. it's a lot slower than when I installed it on VirtualBox, but that's okay. So just be patient. It didn't take too long, just a few minutes really. And back in the day, this probably would have taken a lot longer to work. So we're now going to restart, and you're now going to see the next step, which is really important to get this up and running. And do not be alarmed what happens initially. So let's click on finish on there. So we just need to capture the mouse back in here. Click on finish. It's going to say that we have a floppy disk drive in there. That isn't the case, so don't worry too much about that. And it's going to say getting ready to run Windows for the first time. And yes, somewhat alarming, you're going to get this error here. While initializing device iOS, you're going to get this Windows protection error. You need to restart your computer. So obviously, the first thing you're going to think is, okay, that's absolutely broken. What's happened there? I mentioned earlier about this patch that you need. So that is where this is now going to come into action. So just a reminder, go to winworldpc.com, go to the Windows 95 and then select patches. And then we're going to download Windows 95 fast CPU patches. And that will, within that compressed file there is an ISO file which we need to attach to our virtual machine. So if we click up here in the top, drive image options, and you see we've still got the Windows one set up there. We're going to change that to the fix95 cpu.iso. Click on that, click open, and we're going to restart. So click OK on there to do that. Okay, so we clicked on restart there, and it's actually taken us back into Windows. And the reason for that, I'll show you right away. So let's power that down again. Just close that off there, and you'll notice that we've got our CD DVD fix95 cpu.iso. that is selected, but if we click on edit in here and we go down to the bottom here, you can see we've got two IDE drives selected. So we've got a removable drive, which is our CD DVD ISO image, and we've got our hard drive, which is the where Windows 95 is installed. What we need to do is we need to change the order of these two. The hard drive is coming out first, and then the CD drive. So that isn't correct. So we need to change the order of those. So now you can see we've got the hard drive and the CD drive. You can see it there with the CD/DVD ISO image, fix95 cpu.iso installed on there. So let's click save on that. If we start this again now, it should look to the CD drive before it looks to the hard drive. So if you've run into that problem where you start it up and it goes to Windows rather than going to the CD fix, that will be why. So let's start this up again. There we go. Now you can see it says booting from CD, and we get this screen instead. So this is going to apply the patch for our fast processor support. It says view the README file. As with the PC installation, it says it's recommended, so I'm not going to read it. Click install, and that is it done. That's all you need to do at that point. So we're going to go back up here. We're going to remove that disk now. So let's eject that, and we're going to stop the machine like this. I'm going to start it up again. So now that should look to the hard drive to start. There we go. So it couldn't read anything from CD. You saw it just flash up saying booted from hard drive. Now that should now start up fine. There we go. We're going to set our hardware devices up now, and it's also going to ask us for our time zone. So we're almost there. It is very straightforward. So just that fix95 CPU thing you need to remember, and also the boot order of the drives that you've got in there. If you use a floppy disk to boot from, when you create that floppy disk, you'll need to make sure that it's first in that list. So the order that they appear in there is the order at which the machine will look to install things. On the Windows setup in here, if you didn't do that MS-DOS setup, you would run into problems here, and then you'd have errors forevermore. But we don't need to worry about that in this UTM setup. So let's scroll down to the correct time zone. Apply. I don't know if clicking a close will work, but we'll do apply anyway just to make sure. We don't need a printer, so we can cancel that, and that is it. So it's going to restart now, so let's let it do that. There we go, we've got a little snippet of the sound there, and that is it. So the first thing we need to do is to adjust this resolution so we can actually see what we're doing a little bit better now. So we go to properties. This is just standard. We don't have to worry about setting any of those drivers up like we did before. This is all set up and ready to go. Everything is working nicely. You heard the sound, that's all working nicely too. So let's set the desktop area to that, and let's set the screen area to that as well, and let's increase the colors to 24 bits. Oh, should have done that first. There we go. And let's click OK. Let's specify a monitor, and what you're going to want to pick here is one of these Super VGAs, probably 1280 by 1024. Problem is these monitors are all based on squares, and most modern monitors are all widescreen. So if you pick a 1600 by 1200, basically what will happen is the top and bottom will be off your screen for a lot of people with a lower resolution screen. We're just going to click on 1280 by 1024 because that's all we're going to need. There we go. Click OK. And we're going to say yes, we want to keep those settings. Oh, isn't that glorious? Let's just free the mouse so we can move that up a little bit more. We probably could get away with a bigger resolution actually. In fact, let's do that. Let's go for a slightly larger resolution. The reason I was struggling with this before was because I was using my ROG Ally, and that does have a limit on the screen resolution itself. So let's say show all devices, scroll to a larger one, let's click apply. Okay. Oh, it's not giving us the option anyway. It might do when we restart, but let's just try. Why can't we have true color? Interesting. Okay, we can only apparently have 256 colors at 1280 by 1084, but that's okay. Actually, most games will work with that. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so let's have a go at getting a game installed. So one of the first things I wanted to show you quickly. Quite often, what you'll find is if you download a game or you've got the files. So, for instance, I downloaded Doom, and I wanted it for Windows 95. And it just came with the files. So I wanted to create myself a disk image, and that is very straightforward to do on a Mac. So what you need to use is something called Disk Utility, which is this here. So if you use Disk Utility, basically you can come up to here, you can create a new image, and you can create it from a folder. Very, very easy to do. And all you do is create it from a folder, and it will create a nice disk image, which is a DMG file, which is all great. If you go into Windows and you click on here and you mount it, it won't work. You'll basically end up with an empty folder and nothing will work. So we do need one extra little step. What you can do is open your terminal window, and you can convert those image DMG files with a simple little command, which I will put in the description for you for later on. And that command is hdUtil make hybrid ISO-Juliet, and this is the file that we want it to be, doom95.iso, and this is the file that we created, doom95.dmg, and that will create that string there inside your terminal window is all you need to type, and that will create a generic Windows 95 compatible ISO, which we can then mount in our Windows 95. So if we go to change and we pick doom95.iso, click open. There we go. That is how easy it is to install the games on here. I'm just going to go full screen on this now. So if we release the mouse, click on full screen. We've got a bit of a stretch going on here, so we might want to fiddle about with that later on. But let's just install this now. Oh, that just sorted itself out. That's great. Click install. Next. And finish. Doom 95 is exactly the same as Doom on DOS. It's just it gives you a few little settings before you go in as well. So we click on play game here. There we go, single player game. This is just the shareware version that I've got here, so it'll only allow me to play this first map, I think. You can find the shareware version. Obviously, the nice thing about the shareware version is you can play a bit of Doom and it's free. Which is great. Go to config. I think that's all good. I never managed to get the mouse to work in here, but who knows? We might still get it to work, and we'll just see now. All right. And anything under advanced that we need to do? I don't think there was. Let's go for 640 by 480, and let's go full screen. Okay. So this is the very last thing we're going to do. So let's have a quick look at Doom running in Windows 95 on our state-of-the-art Mac M4. Here we go. Oh, the mouse is working. Fabulous. The only thing that isn't working, weirdly, is the music. And I noticed this last time I went in. I don't know why that is. But I'll take it. This is good. And so I am actually moving around with the mouse here, which is kind of weird. Fantastic. So there you go. That is Doom 95 running on Windows 95, running on a Mac. And you can do the same too. Obviously, if you've got a PC, you can do the same sort of thing and follow the instructions in the previous chapter. So there you go. I'm just going to hand back, well, to myself, and I'll just wrap up for this week. But hopefully that's been useful for you. Hopefully now, whether you've got a Windows PC or whether you've got a Mac, you should now all be feeling very confident about how to get yourself running on Windows 95 again. And just go and have a nice little reminisce once more. Let's get this guy before we finish. Oh man, I love this game. I love this game. This is just a classic. Okay, so there you have it, and as you can see, it is not as straightforward as you might think. So there are just a few little tips and tricks in there. I've had to do quite a bit of research and a bit of trial and error to get it working on my own platforms. You may run into a couple of issues that I've not seen as well. Do let me know how that goes. There is lots of guidance out on the web, but some of it is quite technical, and despite the fact I'm a technical person myself, it has been somewhat of a challenge to try and get some of those things working. So there are just a little few concerns, issues, drivers, as you will have seen from the video there, that you just need to just pay attention to. I'll put as many links as I can in the comments. Obviously, Windows 95 itself, as I mentioned, is obviously technically copyright, so I can't put links into the downloads for that, but I'll give you some hints on where you can pick that up. I happen to have Windows 95 upgrade disc that I had knocking around, so that was helpful for me, but ultimately, even just getting CDs working is quite tricky now on a lot of modern machines. So I don't have a CD on mine, so I've had to go and find a way of getting the ISO set up, and I'm not obviously going into that today. So however you find your Windows 95 copy is generally up to you, but if you go out onto the web and you search for a Windows 95 ISO with a code, you'll generally find one, and I'll leave it down to you onto the how you deal with the ethics of that. Obviously there's a couple of little drivers and other bits and pieces as well that you need to do. So hopefully that was all useful. I'll stop rambling on. So we've got a few things coming up in the channel. This month, as it's Windows 95 month with, you'll notice that a lot of the games are more oriented to Windows 95 in my bit between. So yeah, keep an eye open for those. September feels like a short month for month with, so we're not going to have lots of time to do loads of different things. But yeah, more discussion on Windows 95, and obviously then the month with review, and I'll tell you what it's been like to live with Windows 95 for the last 4 weeks coming up at the end of the month. So lots of things to come. Please do stay tuned. If you enjoy these videos, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I really do appreciate your support. I know I say it every week, but thank you so much to everyone who tunes in. Just hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, I promise. But no, I'll stop begging now because it's really tragic. But yes, anyway, please do all take care of yourselves. I will see you around and see you in the next one. Bye for now.